So, Jeff, I claim to be a better pool player than you.
What?
And I claim to be better at darts than you.
I don't know.
And I also claim to be better at that one game where you do shuffleboard. You know,
Shuffleboard?
well, I grew up doing shuffleboard with a bowling in the bar that I grew up in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, basically any bar game, I claim better than you.
I don't believe that you're better than me at anything.
Anything you could do, I could do better.
Yeah, I don't think so. That's your claim. That's what you claim.
Well,
so he's Chris and I'm Jeff, and we're the Bible guys.
So just to give our listeners a cue, we're talking about the claims of Jesus.
There you go.
Yeah. So,
well, I thought we were talking about your claims. So
right?
What?
Yeah, no, not really.
Okay. Hey, this is one of my favorite segments, by the way.
Oh, dad jokes.
Yes.
Well, yeah, you really love them. You laugh.
I love
you
dad
laugh.
jokes.
Now we've not read these.
No, I have. I'm looking
We
at it
usually
right now.
save them for the moment.
Okay.
You want me to go first?
Okay, you go first.
Okay, here we go. Number one. I ran out of toilet paper, so I've been using old newspapers. The times are rough. That's really good.
It is so appropriate that you got a toilet paper one because you ranted about that.
So
okay. We all know about Murphy's Law, but have you heard about Cole's Law? It's thinly sliced cabbage.
Oh, coleslaw. That's really funny.
Oh, no.
Okay, how about this one? What do you call a dog that could do magic?
I don't know.
A labracadabrador.
Oh, no.
That's terrible. Boo.
For his birthday, I got my son an alarm clock that swears at him instead of beeping. He's in for a rude awakening.
Yes, he is. All right, how about this one? I never wanted to believe my dad was stealing from his job as a road worker. But when I got home, all the signs were there.
No. Oh, hey, here's a Bible Guys one. This is a Bible Guys one.
Okay.
What's the best time of day to study about Gideon? Midianite.
Oh, my word. Wow. Wah, wah. Okay. Number 4. I sued the airline company for losing my luggage. I lost my case.
Oh, no.
That's terrible.
Okay. What do you call a reluctant potato?
What?
Hesitator.
I don't get it.
Hesitator? Tater?
Oh, tater. I bet you I would get it if I read it.
I thought it was so funny. Hesitator.
Well, I don't say taters.
Potato. Oh, you don't say taters?
No.
Oh, I do. Okay.
Okay. Number 5. And this is the last one on
You're
mine.
not redneck enough.
Right. The ducks keep biting my dog at the park. He's purebred. Oh, he's purebred.
Purebred. Okay. Okay. That's okay. Wah, wah.
Yeah, okay.
Good. Well, we're going to end on a good note here.
All right.
So, I've been working on writing. I wrote a book on how not to fall down the stairs. It's a step-by-step guide.
Oh, wow. That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Step-by-step guide. Okay. Those are funny.
I think I mentioned to you my
I
daughter
like the
Tori.
hesitator.
My daughter Tori will laugh until she cries when she reads dad jokes.
Good. Well, these are for you, Tori.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
All right. Well, today we're in John chapter number 5, and we're talking about how Jesus claims to be the Son of God.
Yeah.
And of course, we know those claims are true.
Is this his earliest claim?
Well, the woman at the well.
Yeah, woman at the well. Yeah.
Yeah.
But this one is out in front of everybody.
Yeah.
Right? This is the one where he's in front of Jewish leaders and right. So prior to that, he's forgiven sins.
Yeah.
And they get mad about that because only God can forgive sins. So he's hinted at it in front of the Jewish leaders, but he hasn't straight up.
So I think this is where he claims. Yeah. Well, let's read it, and then we'll talk about it. Yep.
So here we go, John chapter 5, and we're reading from the New Living Translation. It says, so the Jewish leaders began harassing Jesus for breaking Sabbath rules. But Jesus replied, my Father is always working, and so am I. So the Jewish leaders tried all the harder to find a way to kill him. For he not only broke the Sabbath, he called God his Father, thereby making himself equal with God. So Jesus explained, I tell you the truth, the Son can do nothing by himself. He does only what he sees the Father doing. Whatever the Father does, the Son also does. For the Father loves the Son and shows him everything he's doing. In fact, the Father will show him how to do even greater works than healing this man. Then you'll be truly astonished, for For just as the Father gives life to those he raises from the dead, so the Son gives life to anyone he wants. In addition, the Father judges no one. Instead, he has given the Son absolute authority to judge, so that everyone will honor the Son just as they honor the Father. Anyone who does not honor the Son is certainly not honoring the Father who sent him. I tell you the truth, those who listen to my message and believe in God who sent me have eternal life. They will never be condemned for their sins, but they have already passed from death into life. And I assure you that the time is coming, indeed it's here now, when the dead will hear my voice, and the voice of the Son of God, and those who listen will live. The Father has life in himself, and he has granted that same life-giving power to his Son, and he has given him authority to judge everyone because he is the Son of Man. Don't be surprised. Indeed, the time is coming when all the dead in their graves will hear the voice of God's Son, and they will rise again. Those who've done good will rise to experience eternal life, and those who've continued in evil will rise to experience judgment. I can do nothing on my own. I judge as God tells me. Therefore, my judgment is just, because I carry out the will of the one who sent me, not my own will.
So these are some pretty audacious claims.
Yeah.
So in our Life Application Study Bible, there's like a little section where it talks about all of the claims of Christ. And so Jesus claimed to be, number one, the fulfillment of Old Testament prophecies in all four Gospels. Yeah. He claimed to be the Son of Man, as was read here, and then also in so many other parts of the Scripture, he calls himself this. He calls himself the Son of God in all four Gospels on multiple occasions. He calls himself the Messiah, the Christ. He calls himself teacher and master. He gives himself the authority to forgive, calls himself Lord and Savior. Now, by the way, that excludes, those are the categories, but the subcategories are like, he also said, I'm the way, the truth, the life.
Right.
He said, I am the gate. Right. Right? He talks about how he is the only one. So, C.S. Lewis talks about liar, Lord, lunatic.
Yeah. Right.
So, one of my favorite thoughts is that when C.S. Lewis said, you have no choice but to think about Jesus either as a liar or a lunatic or a Lord.
Right.
But he cannot be, in between. The polarization of those.
He was saying you can't just say he's a good teacher.
Right.
Because if he's lying, he's not good.
Right.
Right. If he's a lunatic, you shouldn't be listening to him. He shouldn't be your teacher.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. But the idea that he claims all of these things, you either have to believe it or you don't.
Right. Yeah.
There's no middle ground there.
So if you remember, those of you that have been tracking along with us, last week we ended where Jesus heals that lame man by the pool. And then the religious leaders are like, hey, you can't be healed on the Sabbath. And the guy's like, hey, I don't know anything. Who healed you? I don't know. Right. But he's the one who told me to carry my mat and go home. Right. And so I picked it up. So that's the story. And if you missed that, go back and listen to last Friday's. But so now this is, remember he said, I don't know who it was. Later on, Jesus comes back and finds him in the temple. And then he tells the Jewish leaders, oh, it was that Jesus guy. So this conversation is after they figure out who healed that lame man. And so then that's when they begin harassing Jesus for breaking the Sabbath rules. And so I think it's funny. Jesus is like, what are you talking about? My father and I work on the Sabbath all the time. Right?
Yeah.
And that just ticked them off. Because for a Jewish boy to claim that, to claim his father, what he's doing is he's claiming the father's name. He's claiming the father's authority. He's claiming the father's position. Because that's the way that in their culture they would view it, that the father's whole job is to pass everything down to the son, to teach the son the trade, to teach the son how the family does business, to teach the son the values and the morals of the family, to give the authority and the wealth and the inheritance from the family to the son. So by him claiming that he's the son of God was essentially, in their culture, he was claiming to be God.
Yeah, well, not only, listen, he says, it's one thing to say, when you honor the Son, you honor the Father. That's like, wow, really? That's amazing. But then he says, those who do not honor the Son is not honoring the Father who sent him.
Right.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
Right? Think about that. So if you honor me, you honor the Father. Okay, but I don't have to honor you, right?
Right.
But you're saying that if you dishonor me, you're dishonoring God.
Father, right.
That is a huge statement.
Yes.
So when he backs that up, and if you think about it, that is no different than, think about, like, for instance, it's a poor comparison, but if you think about a company who's owned by somebody and they send a representative and it's the son, right? And if you disrespect them, it's going to go directly back to, right? So, it's an extension is what it is. And that's what Jesus is claiming. He's claiming every single bit of what the Father represents is found in me because I represent him.
Yeah.
And it's an extension of who he is.
Yeah. Or in modern culture, you have the whole idea of an ambassador representing a king or an ambassador representing a president, and dishonor an ambassador in a tough way. And there's a chance war is going to happen.
Did you ever see 300?
No.
Oh, well, they send an ambassador to Sparta,
movie, yeah.
and he kicks him down a well, and he goes, "We are Sparta!"
Yeah. And then a war breaks out.
Yes. And it's awesome.
So that's the idea is, the one is the other, right?
Yeah.
So that's what was really important there. The other thing is, and I think it's difficult maybe sometimes for us that are not Jewish to understand the importance of the Sabbath. So one, remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. It's one of the 10 commandments. So in the top 10 lists, that made it, right?
Yep.
And it was like top of the list, right? Number 3 or whatever. So that's a big thing, that they understood that this is fundamental to their faith, is that we work 6 days and we rest on the 7th. And then they made all these rules, because the reality is the Levitical law had a lot of rules about what could and couldn't be done on the Sabbath. But like God did say, hey, if your donkey or your oxen falls in the ditch, you can get it out. So there were some things that that they were permitted to do, but for the most part, they weren't supposed to be doing a lot of extra work. But the note here, and I think this is interesting in the Life Application Bible, says, if God stopped every kind of work on the Sabbath, nature would fall into chaos and sin would overrun the world, right?
That's a big statement.
So there are some things that are, necessary to be done even on that day. So God's not making some rule that you can't, pick up a pencil, or that you drop something on the ground, you can't pick it up and put it in the garbage. That just doesn't exist. Although, and I've said this before, I was in Jerusalem on the Sabbath day, and in the Jewish quarter, which is so clean through the rest of the week, on the Sabbath day, I was dumbfounded at how filthy the streets were. It's because people would be walking on, and you know how it is. You're walking down the street, you unwrap your ice cream cone, but you're not allowed to pick it up, right? So you're allowed to feed yourself. You're allowed to go for a stroll a certain distance inside the Jewish quarter. There's limits to their work that they're able to do. And what they've done is they've made rules to enforce the rules, to enforce the rules, to enforce the rules. It's become very burdensome. And in Jesus' day, it was the same thing. And Jesus is like, come on, there are necessary functions that have to happen even on the day of rest.
Right. Because he said the Sabbath was created for man. The man wasn't created for the Sabbath.
That's right.
Right. Because when you have those things out of order, it's like the Sabbath becomes the most important thing.
Right.
We are
the rule itself.
We are created to serve the Sabbath. It's like no. The Sabbath exists for our benefit,
right?
And it's a principle.
So
right?
it goes two ways on this. Jesus is saying, he doesn't say it here in this passage, does he? This isn't the passage where he said the Sabbath is for man.
No.
That's coming up.
No, this is sort of his,
because this is a recurring fight he has with the religious leaders, by the way.
Right, and this was an outbreak from him healing on the Sabbath.
Yeah. But there is a time where we're going to read here where he'll say God gave the Sabbath to man, not making. He didn't create man for the Sabbath. Right. So we don't serve; it serves us. So it's a gift from God for us for rest, and we should take it. I think that's really, really important. And Jesus honors the Sabbath in that context. At the same time, he also honors people and takes care of people on the Sabbath. Right. Yeah. So he's highlighting the fact that it's for humanity. But on the other hand, these religious leaders, the last time God intervened or engaged in society in their world was right there at the end of the Old Testament. So you've got Isaiah, and then just a few years later, you've got Malachi. And in Malachi, God says, I'm bringing judgment because you're ignoring the Sabbath. Mm-hmm. Right? So they understand the importance of, okay, judgment comes when we rebel against the Sabbath. So there's this balance between understanding that the Sabbath isn't the point. It's a gift from you. But we have to look at, even today, I think in our world as Christians, we have to look at it and say, hey, this is a gift from God. Do I just really want to go, I don't need that gift. That's a dumb gift.
Right.
Because a lot of us go, oh, you know what? I'm so important. I really need to work 7 days. Mm-hmm. Or I have an opportunity to make some more money. That's more important than what God wants me to take a break. Right. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times we can take the gift that God gives us and throw it away. Yeah. And there's consequence to that too. So we shouldn't be flippant about the Sabbath, But Jesus is really clear here. There's some things that need to be done on the Sabbath.
So I heard a message one time, and I've never forgotten the statement, and you have to really think about the statement. But ultimately, after the teaching, the conclusion of the statement is this, is that we as humans, we are created to work from rest, not to rest from work.
Oh, wow. What a
Right?
good message.
Yeah, and so that is exactly what happens.
Yeah.
Because God created Adam, and then he rests, right? So the first thing that Adam does in his world is rest. So rest comes along, and then God gives him the assignments, right? And so if you think about it, our whole idea is we're supposed to work out of rest. That's when we're our best.
Yeah.
Not to rest, find the times, which is why the Sabbath exists, because the principle is there because God knows, just like a lot of the things in nature. One time we did a long time ago at a previous church, I did a message on bowling pins. Did you know that bowling pins actually need to rest one day a week?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if they continue to be used, the life expectancy of a bowling pin diminishes by, a certain percentage.
Oh, I didn't know that.
30, 40%, something crazy.
Wow.
So, but if you rest bowling pins one day a week, their life expectancy goes on and on.
Yeah.
And so, it's like, what can we learn from bowling pins?
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But the idea that we're supposed to rest from work and that we're not supposed to work from, or work from rest, not rest from work, is the idea that, many people live their lives just looking for spaces to rest because they're so busy.
Yeah.
But they want to cram in another dollar, another promotion, another paycheck, which, at times in seasons, I think we all understand what that means.
When you're stressed out and exhausted, a break doesn't do for you what you needed to do.
Right. Yeah.
Right? You've pushed too far at that point. And I also think, King David, he stayed home when everybody else went to war.
Right.
And I think sometimes if you don't have purposeful rest, then that's a time you get yourself in trouble.
Yeah.
I think you probably see a lot of like midlife crises, both male midlife crises, female midlife crises, from exhausted, stressed out people who have not been building in this healthy balance in their life, right?
Yeah.
It just happens where basically a lot of times I think those midlife crises, I think a lot of them is somebody just pulling the eject lever. That's what they're doing. The fighter jet's just going too fast. I've been pushing too hard. I can't handle these G's anymore, and I just need a break. Just pull it. And it's from stress. So I love that idea of working from rest. So God started off working and then ended with rest. But Adam's first day was a rest day.
Right.
And then he went on and tended the garden, named the
Yeah.
animals, did all the work that he was supposed to do. That's brilliant. I never thought of that before. So,
Yeah.
so there's two big ideas here. Then the Sabbath thing, and then obviously Jesus saying, "Hey, by the way, I'm God."
Now
And this is a strong declaration. that
Yeah,
he's
so
God.
so think about this. So back in the day, we look back at the cross 2,000 plus years ago, and we're like, oh, well, we believe that Jesus was the Son of God. But try to picture yourself in that moment, right? So you're part of a culture that awaits the Christ, the Messiah, and someone comes along and says, "It's me," right?
right.
And then all of a sudden you're like, "What?" Well, there are so. If you think about it, that defines world religions.
Well, the definition of Judaism, they were the only monotheistic religion in the whole region.
Right.
It defined them.
Right.
And there is one God and there is no other.
Right.
And then Jesus comes and goes, "Yeah, I'm God."
Right. And by the way, a lot of people don't understand this. It's I remember when I learned this, but even today, so if you run into somebody who's Jewish and they claim to be a good practicing Jew, they believe everything there is about the Old Testament, and they just don't believe that Jesus was the Messiah.
Right.
They believe that he lived. Obviously there's evidence about that, but they don't believe that. So I remember seeing just months ago in the news, and I haven't seen it recently, but how they believe that they found the Messiah, as of just a few months ago.
Yeah, sure.
And the amazing thing for me is that guy wore glasses. And I was like, why does he wear glasses? Right? The Son of God doesn't have perfect vision. Whatever. But they believed he was the Messiah.
So every few years, there's a new Messiah in Israel.
Yeah. So which is pretty crazy.
When we were just in Israel, there were all these on the backs of a lot of the big street signs. There were these big stickers of a rabbi. And finally, after like the 10th time I saw one, I asked the guy we were with, he's from there, and he said, "Oh, that's the current rabbi that they believe is the Messiah." And he said about half of the ones looking for a Messiah, because not all Jews are looking for a Messiah anymore, but of the ones that are, about half of them believed he was the Messiah. But he died a couple months ago. So now they're waiting for him to resurrect.
Yikes.
And yeah. So they were hoping that on the third month, so instead of the third day, it'd be the third month he'd resurrect. But he hasn't. And then there's a new guy.
Then it'll be the third year, then the third decade.
Right. So there's a new guy that a lot of the other ones are saying, no, he's the new Messiah.
Right.
Yeah. It happens all the time.
That's pretty crazy.
In Jesus' day, did you know that in the region, or in the decades around Jesus, there were 20-something people who claimed to be messiahs?
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, we were talking about this just the other day. You and I went to a retreat at a lodge held by another church, and the goal was to bring Muslim leaders and Christian leaders and bring them together. Yeah. And both of our groups were sort of like, we don't know what to expect. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And there were how many imams?
There were like 12 pastors and 12 imams. Yeah. Imams being the leaders of a mosque. Yeah. I hosted that. I was the one who put all that together.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah.
And we all got together, and it was a pretty wonderful. I remember it being very impactful.
Yeah, it humanized the other.
Yes.
So Christianity and Islam are fundamentally incompatible theologically.
Right. Yes.
But we're still humans, and we still share a planet. And the world that we leave our children, our grandchildren, is the world that Muslims and Christians are going to create. Right. So working for peace, even though we have fundamentally incompatible faith belief systems, means we have to humanize the other person, and recognize that they are also made in the image of God,
right? And
that we need to show respect to humanity.
Yeah, and it was pretty insightful how we did all those exercises, and they wrote down all their perceptions of Christians.
Yeah.
And then we wrote down all of our perceptions of Muslims, and then we wrote them down. Then we shared them with each other.
We read them out loud. Yeah,
read them out loud.
It was funny.
And they were like, "What? You think of us that way?" And then we said the same thing. We're like, "You think of us this way?"
Yep.
And it was pretty wild. But all of that. But think about it. One of the main things that separates world religions like that is the idea that we believe that Jesus claimed to be the Son of God and that he was, that he's the way to heaven.
Right.
Whereas they would say, we recognize that Jesus exists just like Muhammad, but he is only merely a prophet.
Right.
And the thing that separates, in terms of their view of Jesus, the thing that separates us from them when it comes to Jesus is this passage right here.
Yeah.
Right. And others like it.
And the resurrection. Is he the Son? They don't believe he's the Son of God. They don't believe he resurrected.
Yes.
They believe he was virgin born. They believed he lived a sinless life. They believe he did miracles. They believe he taught us the best way to live. He was the holiest of all the prophets, that he ascended back to heaven, and that he sits at the right hand of the Father, and that he will come and judge us someday. The two things that they don't believe is that he was the Son of God and that God raised him from the dead. Those are the two clinchers. But this passage and others like it, where Jesus claims to be the Son of God, are definitive to what makes us Christians, that we believe Jesus is the Son of God.
Yeah. And so when Jesus talks about, dying on the cross, raising from the dead, we have to understand that when he claimed to be the fulfillment of Old Testament prophecies, there were hundreds of Old Testament prophecies. Yeah. And I remember reading a stat one time that talked about if you got all, and we could maybe wrap up with this thought, if you got the entire state of Texas, have you heard this?
Oh,
you filled the entire state of Texas 1 feet deep of quarters.
Right.
Now think about that.
Yeah.
I mean, 1 feet of quarters in this room.
It's silver dollars.
Well, it could be anything.
Yeah.
It could be pebbles.
Well, silver dollars are twice the size of a quarter, but yeah. Anyways.
Oh, yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's okay.
So anyway, but silver dollars. But think about it. And then you marked one of them.
Yeah, just paint one red.
And then you mix it up.
Right.
The odds of picking that would be Jesus fulfilling 8 of the prophecies.
Right.
8 of them.
Right.
And there were what, 300?
300 and something. Yeah.
Just 8 of them.
Right.
So just the odds are almost incalculable. And yet Jesus' claim was backed up by those odds.
By fulfilling every one of the prophecies.
Right.
Yeah. Because if he hadn't fulfilled every prophecy, then he wasn't the Messiah.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah, that's pretty great.
All right. Well, Jesus, who he says he was. So we'll see you next time on The Bible Guys.